Have you ever caught yourself wondering why you stay in a relationship that hurts you? You know it's wrong. You know it's draining you. You've had those nights when you told yourself, this time, I'm done. And yet, somehow, you stay. You try to leave, you make promises to yourself, you swear this will be the last time, but something invisible pulls you back in. You can feel it. It's not love anymore. It's something else. Something darker. People love to say, just leave. If it's toxic, walk away. But if it were that simple, you would have done it already. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You're not addicted to pain. What's happening inside you is far more complex and far more human than anyone gives you credit for. You are not trapped by the person. You are trapped by the emotional experience that relationship created inside you. You see, toxic relationships don't start toxic. They begin with warmth, connection, chemistry, the spark that makes you believe you finally found someone who understands you. That's how the bond forms. Then, slowly, the same connection that once made you feel alive begins to suffocate you. You start walking on eggshells. You measure your words. You stop being yourself. And one day you realize that love has turned into survival. You are no longer trying to be happy, you are just trying to avoid pain. So, why do you stay? Because somewhere deep inside, your mind believes that fixing this relationship will fix something much older inside you. That if you can make this person love you right, maybe you'll finally feel worthy, safe, enough. This is why even the pain doesn't make you leave. Because what's at stake isn't just the relationship, it's your sense of self. You're not just losing a person, you're losing the story you've built around who you are when you're with them. Think about this. You're not drawn to the person's cruelty or indifference. You're drawn to the moments that made you feel alive, the small doses of affection that came after days of cold silence, the text that finally arrived after hours of waiting, the sudden apology that made you believe maybe, just maybe, they finally understood. Those moments felt like oxygen. They were rare, unpredictable, and powerful. They made all the suffering seem worth it. And that's where the trap begins. This isn't love, it's conditioning. Your brain learns to associate tension with desire, absence with longing, chaos with passion. The result? You confuse intensity with intimacy. You start thinking that love is supposed to hurt, that if it feels calm or steady, something's missing. But that's not love, it's your nervous system reacting to familiarity. You are addicted to what feels known, not what feels right. And here's the hard truth, most people don't get trapped in toxic relationships because they lack willpower. They get trapped because the relationship mirrors their earliest experiences of love. Maybe you grew up having to earn affection, being good, being quiet, being needed. Maybe you learned that love came with conditions, that affection could disappear if you disappointed someone. So when you meet someone who behaves the same way, warm one day, cold the next, your brain doesn't see danger. It sees home. That's why the phrase, "why don't you just leave," completely misses the point. You're not fighting logic, you're fighting emotional wiring that was built over years. Your body remembers the pattern, even when your mind screams that it's wrong. You can block their number, move cities, start fresh, and still find yourself thinking about them, justifying them, wondering if they've changed. Because the real prison isn't a relationship. It's the invisible emotional bond your mind keeps feeding. And that's what I want you to understand. Breaking free starts long before you pack your bags or end the calls. It begins when you stop trying to fix the other person and start asking, what is this relationship teaching me about me? What part of me feels unworthy of peace? What wound am I trying to heal through this connection? What do I keep chasing that never existed to begin with? Those are painful questions, but they're the doorway out. Because the moment you stop blaming the other person and start seeing the deeper pattern, something changes. You stop being a victim of the story and start becoming the author of it. Every toxic relationship serves as a mirror. It reflects back to you all the places where you still seek external validation, where you confuse love with approval, where you silence yourself to be chosen. It's not punishment, it's revelation. It's life saying, here's what you still need to heal. And yes, it hurts like hell. But clarity always hurts before it sets you free. Let me be very clear, recognizing the pattern doesn't mean forgiving the abuse or excusing the manipulation. It means understanding why your heart stayed long after your mind left. It means realizing that emotional entrapment doesn't happen because you are broken, it happens because you learn to love through pain. But love built on pain isn't love. It's survival disguised as devotion. So, if you find yourself asking, why do I still care? Why do I still check my phone? Why do I still dream about them? Don't shame yourself. You're not crazy. You're human. You're someone who learned to mistake chaos for connection, and now you're waking up. That's what this process really is, a waking up. You are beginning to see the invisible strings that have been pulling you. You are beginning to realize that this isn't about them at all. It's about you remembering your power. And that's the turning point. Because once you name the trap, you start loosening its grip. You start noticing the lies your mind tells you to keep you hooked. They'll change. It wasn't that bad. I just need to try harder. No, you don't. You don't need to try harder to be loved. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who thrives on your confusion. You don't need to explain why you deserve peace. You just need to see the truth, and once you do, it becomes impossible to unsee it. That's the beginning of freedom. That's where the real work begins. Not in running away from pain, but in understanding why you kept walking toward it. Because once you understand the pattern, you'll never walk back into it the same way again. That's the trap you don't see, and the awareness that can finally set you free. To understand why you keep getting pulled back into relationships that drain you, you have to look deeper than the relationship itself. The real answer isn't in the person who hurt you. It's in the blueprint your heart built long before you ever met them. Love isn't something that just happens, it's something we learn. It's shaped, programmed, and wired into us from the very beginning. And if what we learned about love was mixed with pain, rejection, or inconsistency, then that's exactly what will feel familiar later in life. From the moment you were born, your brain was scanning for connection. That's how we survive. Babies don't just need food, they need to be held, soothed, and seen. When a caregiver responds with warmth and predictability, the child learns a simple truth: love is safe. But when affection comes mixed with fear, neglect, or emotional chaos, a different message forms. The child learns that love is something unstable, unpredictable, something you have to fight for to keep. That becomes the emotional blueprint for every relationship that follows. So fast forward 20 or 30 years. You meet someone who's kind, calm, and consistent. They treat you well. They're emotionally available. But something in you feels off. You call it lack of chemistry, or you say, it feels too easy. You might even feel bored. But what's really happening is that your nervous system doesn't recognize safety as exciting. It recognizes it as unfamiliar. To your subconscious mind, love is supposed to come with highs and lows, with moments of tension followed by relief. So when someone shows you consistent love, it doesn't feel like love, it feels like nothing. Then along comes the person who mirrors your old pattern perfectly. One day they're warm and affectionate, the next they're cold and distant. They praise you, then punish you. They pull you close, then push you away. And your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. Ah, it says, this feels right. This feels like home. Except it's not home, it's a repetition of an old wound dressed up as passion. That rush you feel isn't love. It's recognition. You've met your pattern again. Let's make it real. Imagine growing up with a parent who was loving but emotionally unpredictable. Some days they were affectionate, other days withdrawn or critical. You learned to read moods, to anticipate emotional weather. You became skilled at earning love, by being quiet, pleasing, fixing things, being the good one. Now, as an adult, you meet someone who triggers the same feelings. They make you work for their affection. They make you guess what version of them you'll get today. And instead of running, you feel magnetically drawn to them. Because somewhere inside, your inner child believes, if I can finally make this one love me right, maybe I'll heal what happened back then. That's the cruel magic of attachment wounds. They make you chase resolution through repetition. You replay the same emotional script, hoping to rewrite the ending. But every time you choose someone who fits that old pattern, the story ends the same way, with you feeling unseen, unheard, and unworthy. That's why it's not enough to just leave a toxic partner. If you don't rewrite your blueprint, you'll unconsciously find another person who plays the same role with a different face. This is why understanding your attachment style matters. If you grew up with stable love, you likely develop what psychologists call a secure attachment. You can trust, connect, and set boundaries without fear. But if love was inconsistent, you might develop anxious attachment, the need to chase closeness and panic when it's not there. Or you might develop avoidant attachment, the instinct to pull away whenever someone gets too close, because intimacy feels dangerous. The most painful combination? When someone anxious falls for someone avoidant. It creates a constant push and pull, a loop of need and withdrawal that feels like fireworks but ends in exhaustion. And here's the paradox. You think you're fighting for love, but what you're really fighting for is emotional familiarity. You're trying to turn an unsafe pattern into a safe one. You're trying to heal the past by reliving it. But healing doesn't come from repeating the wound, it comes from recognizing it and choosing differently. The first step to changing your blueprint is awareness. Start paying attention to what feels like chemistry. When you feel that intense pull towards someone who's inconsistent, stop and ask yourself, is this attraction, or is this my old wound getting excited? Real love doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't make you beg for scraps of attention. Real love feels calm. It feels steady. It feels boring only to the part of you that equates chaos with connection. And I get it, this realization can hurt. It's painful to admit that what you've been calling love might actually be survival. It's hard to accept that what felt passionate was just the nervous system reliving its favorite storm. But this truth will save you. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You can start building new associations, peace instead of panic, steadiness instead of suspense, mutual respect instead of emotional chasing. You might have to retrain your whole body to believe that safety is not dull. That being treated kindly doesn't mean you're settling. That not being anxious all the time doesn't mean something's missing. Because that calm you're afraid of, that's what healthy love actually feels like. So the next time you find yourself drawn to someone who keeps you guessing, who gives affection in small, unpredictable doses, pause. Ask yourself, does this feel familiar or does this feel right? They are not the same thing. Familiarity is what built your past. Choice is what will build your future. The truth is, you can't rewrite your past, but you can reprogram your pattern. You can teach your heart that love doesn't have to be earned through pain. You can learn to choose what feels safe over what feels intense. You can stop chasing the highs and start valuing the peace. That's the power of awareness. It's the beginning of liberation. Because when you understand your attachment blueprint, you stop falling for the same story. You stop calling chaos love. You stop mistaking anxiety for passion. And for the first time, you give yourself permission to create a new definition of love, one that doesn't hurt, one that doesn't take, one that doesn't make you smaller. That's where healing begins, not when someone else finally treats you right, but when you realize you deserve a love that doesn't demand your suffering as proof of its existence. Now that you understand where your pattern comes from, let's talk about what keeps it alive, the mechanism that makes you feel trapped even when you know you should walk away. You're not crazy for missing someone who hurt you. You're not weak for still checking your phone. What you're feeling isn't love anymore, it's addiction. And like any addiction, it's built on one powerful psychological force, intermittent reinforcement. Here's what that means. Decades ago, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner ran an experiment with animals. He placed a rat in a box with a lever that released food. At first, every time the rat pressed the lever, food came out. The rat learned quickly, press lever, get reward. But then Skinner changed the rule. He stopped giving food every time. Sometimes the lever worked, sometimes it didn't, and there was no pattern. The result? The rat became obsessed. It pressed the lever over and over, desperate for the next reward, unable to stop, even when it was exhausted. That, my friends, is intermittent reinforcement. And it's exactly what happens in a toxic relationship. If the person you love were cruel all the time, leaving would be easy. You'd see the danger clearly. But they're not. They give you just enough warmth, affection, or apology to make you stay. They sprinkle kindness between the chaos. A sweet text after 3 days of silence. A hug after a brutal argument. And I love you right after you've had enough. And your brain takes the bait. It floods with dopamine, the same chemical released when gamblers win at slot machines. It feels like relief, like euphoria. But it's not real love, it's a chemical high. That's why you keep going back. You're chasing that feeling. You're chasing the memory of the good moments that show up unpredictably like jackpots. You tell yourself, see, this is who they really are. We just need to get back to this version. But those moments aren't proof of love, they're part of the cycle that keeps you hooked. Your nervous system is wired to expect pain, then crave the relief that comes after. And that relief is what feels like connection. The truth is, the relationship isn't healing you, it's giving you withdrawal, then relief, over and over, until you forget who you were before it all began. You stop noticing how much your standards have dropped. At first, you wanted respect, communication, stability. Now you're satisfied with an occasional text, a small gesture, a few kind words. You call it progress, but it's not, it's survival. You're not growing in love, you're shrinking into tolerance. And every time you forgive what shouldn't be forgiven, you reinforce the addiction. You train your brain to believe that pain is part of passion. Think about the last time you almost left. Maybe you even said it out loud. And then, suddenly, they changed. They apologized, cried, promised therapy, promised to do better. For a brief moment, everything felt perfect again, almost magical. You thought, this time will be different. But it wasn't. It never is. Because the apology wasn't transformation, it was the next lever pull. The next dose. The next unpredictable reward to keep you hooked. And here's what makes intermittent reinforcement so dangerous: your brain doesn't want consistency. It wants possibility. It's not addicted to certainty, it's addicted to hope. Hope that the next version of them will be the real one. Hope that the next conversation will fix everything. Hope that one more chance will finally make it work. Hope becomes the drug, and you become the dealer and the customer at the same time, feeding your own illusion because the truth feels too painful. But that's how all addictions work. They give you the illusion of control while they quietly take it away. They make you believe you can quit anytime, just not today. They convince you that the next hit will be the last. And before you know it, you're trapped not because the cage is locked, but because you're afraid to live without the cage. You've tied your identity to the very thing that's destroying it. You tell yourself that leaving would be too painful. But the pain of leaving is short-term. The pain of staying lasts forever. Because every time you stay, you lose another piece of yourself. Your self-respect erodes. Your joy fades. Your confidence breaks. You start doubting your reality. And one day, you wake up realizing that you've become a version of yourself you barely recognize, someone constantly waiting, hoping, bargaining, apologizing for existing. So how do you break this? You have to treat it like what it is, a detox. You have to understand that your body and mind have been conditioned to crave emotional highs and tolerate emotional lows. And when you cut the connection, you'll go through withdrawal. You'll feel empty, restless, anxious. You'll think about calling them just to feel something. But this is where the real healing begins. Because the more you endure those withdrawal waves without giving in, the more your brain rewires. You teach it that peace isn't boring, it's freedom. That absence isn't emptiness, it's space for something new. You also have to stop romanticizing the good moments. Those moments weren't proof of love, they were proof of control. A toxic partner doesn't need to be cruel all the time. They just need to give you enough hope to keep you around. That's how the cycle survives. So the next time your mind replays the good days, remember what came after. Remember how it always ended, with confusion, pain, and silence. That pattern is the evidence, not the exception. Breaking the addiction means changing the story you tell yourself. You have to replace "I miss them" with "I miss the version of me who still believed in their potential." You have to replace "I can't live without them" with "I can't live without myself anymore." You have to realize that every time you stop pressing that lever, you take back a piece of your power. This is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming awareness. It's about realizing that love isn't supposed to feel like withdrawal. It's not supposed to keep you guessing or make you sick with anxiety. Real love is consistent. It's predictable. It's safe. And if that sounds boring to you right now, that's only because chaos has been your comfort zone for too long. So ask yourself this: do you want to keep feeding the cycle, or do you want to be free? Because the lever will always be there, waiting. But so will the door. And the day you stop reaching for another hit of maybe, and start walking toward peace, that's the day you finally begin to heal. Let's talk about one of the most painful and confusing parts of a toxic relationship: the mind games. The manipulation that makes you question your own sanity. The words that twist your reality until you can't tell what's true anymore. It's not just cruelty, it's psychological warfare. And if you've ever found yourself saying, "Maybe I'm overreacting," or "Maybe I'm the problem," then you've already felt the impact of gaslighting. Gaslighting is not just someone lying to you. It's when they make you doubt what you see, what you feel, and what you remember. It's when they rewrite the story right in front of you and somehow convince you that you're the one who's confused. It usually starts small. You notice something doesn't add up. A text that doesn't make sense, a contradiction in what they said, a lie that's too obvious to ignore. You bring it up calmly, and instead of listening, they turn it on you. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. That never happened. You always twist my words. And suddenly, the conversation is no longer about their behavior, it's about your reaction. You start defending yourself instead of your truth. You start doubting your memory, apologizing for things you didn't do, questioning if maybe you did misunderstand. That's the goal, to make you stop trusting yourself. Because once you stop trusting your own perception, they can define reality for you. That's how control works. It's not about locking the door, it's about convincing you the door was never open. And the more it happens, the deeper the confusion grows. You replay conversations in your head trying to find evidence that you're not crazy. You check screenshots, reread messages, ask friends for validation. But every time you confront them, they twist it again. It's exhausting. It's like living in a fog where nothing makes sense. One day they love you, the next they act like you're the enemy. One day they admit something, the next they deny ever saying it. You start losing confidence, not just in them, but in yourself. That's the power of gaslighting. It doesn't destroy you overnight, it erodes you slowly. You begin to shrink. You second-guess every instinct, every emotion, every boundary. You learn to silence your truth just to keep the peace. And before long, you start relying on them to tell you who you are. That dependency isn't accidental, it's the design. But gaslighting is only one weapon in the manipulator's arsenal. Another powerful one is projection. This is when they accuse you of the very things they're doing. If they lie, they accuse you of dishonesty. If they cheat, they call you unfaithful. If they lose their temper, they say you're the one who's unstable. It's maddening. You find yourself constantly defending against crimes you never committed. And the irony is, the louder you try to prove your innocence, the guiltier you start to feel. That's how projection traps you, it shifts the focus. Instead of holding them accountable, you're busy clearing your own name. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this?" you start asking, "What did I do wrong?" And that's exactly where they want you, confused, apologetic, and drained. Because a tired, insecure mind is easy to control. The scariest part is how subtle it can be. It's not always yelling or insults. Sometimes it's quiet manipulation. The sighs. The dismissive tone. The way they roll their eyes when you express feelings. The smirk that says, "Here we go again." It's emotional sabotage disguised as misunderstanding. And you start adjusting your behavior to avoid triggering it. You walk on eggshells, edit your words, smile when you want to cry. You tell yourself, if I just stay calm, if I don't make them angry, maybe we'll be okay. But you'll never be okay, because the rules keep changing. This isn't communication, it's conditioning. They train you to doubt your reality and reward you when you comply. The moment you stop questioning them, the warmth returns. The moment you express doubt, they punish you with silence, sarcasm, or accusations. It's psychological manipulation wrapped in love. You think you're trying to save the relationship, but you're really trying to survive it. So why do intelligent, self-aware people fall for this? Because gaslighting doesn't start with cruelty, it starts with charm. It starts with someone who seems attentive, caring, maybe even vulnerable. They make you feel special. They open up about their past. They tell you how much they've been hurt before. And when the manipulation begins, you interpret it through empathy. They didn't mean it. They're just stressed. They had a tough childhood. You start making excuses for their behavior, and before you realize it, you're trapped in a cycle of forgiveness that never ends. But let me tell you something, love without respect isn't love, it's control. If someone repeatedly dismisses your reality, they don't love you, they own you. And ownership has nothing to do with intimacy. It's about power. It's about keeping you small enough to never threaten their illusion. Here's the truth most people don't want to face: you can't win with a manipulator by proving your point. The moment you start defending your sanity, you've already lost the argument. They're not looking for truth, they're looking for dominance. The only way to win the game is to stop playing. When you start trusting your own perception again, the fog begins to lift. You'll notice how many times you said sorry for things that weren't your fault. How many times you stayed silent to keep someone else comfortable. How many times you confused manipulation for love because it came wrapped in guilt and nostalgia. And when you finally see it for what it is, you'll feel both heartbreak and relief, because clarity always brings both. So if you're in that fog right now, wondering if you're crazy, let me assure you, you're not. You're just someone who's been trained to doubt themselves. But you can unlearn it. You can start small. When your gut says something feels off, listen. When someone tries to twist your reality, pause and remind yourself, I know what I saw. I know how I feel. I trust my truth. That's how you begin taking your power back. Because manipulation thrives in confusion, but it dies in clarity. Once you start trusting yourself again, their control weakens. Once you stop explaining and start observing, you'll see the pattern for what it really is: not love, not connection, but a system of control built to keep you small. And once you see that clearly, you're already halfway free. Let's talk about one of the most powerful forces that keeps people trapped in toxic relationships: not manipulation, not guilt, not even love, but fear. The fear of being alone. It sounds simple, almost shallow, but it's one of the deepest, most primal fears we carry as human beings. And it's the one that toxic relationships exploit best. Because if you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, what if I never find someone else? What if this is as good as it gets? Then you know exactly what I mean. Society has trained us to see loneliness as failure. From childhood, we're taught that partnership is the prize, that being loved means being worthy, and that being single means something's wrong with you. Movies, songs, even social media reinforce the same message: love is the goal, and if you don't have it, you're incomplete. So when you're in a relationship, even a painful one, your brain tells you it's better than being alone. It whispers, at least you have someone. At least you're not starting over. And that lie becomes the chain that keeps you stuck. But let's be honest. It's not the loneliness you're afraid of, it's the withdrawal. When you leave a toxic relationship, your brain goes through the same chemical crash as someone detoxing from a drug. You're not just missing the person, you're missing the highs and lows, the adrenaline, the drama, the emotional roller coaster that made you feel alive. That's not love. That's dependency. And dependency always disguises itself as connection. You tell yourself you can't leave because you love them. But love without peace isn't love, it's captivity. You tell yourself you just need to give it one more chance. But how many one more chances have you already given? How many apologies have you accepted that were really just pauses between the same mistakes? The truth is, you're not waiting for them to change. You're waiting for them to become who they pretended to be at the beginning. You're not in love with who they are, you're in love with their potential, with the fantasy you built to survive the reality. And I get it. Hope is intoxicating. The illusion that things could be different keeps you from facing the pain of what they really are. You replay those early days in your mind, the laughter, the passion, the promises. You tell yourself that version of them was real. We just lost it. But here's the hard truth, it wasn't lost. It was never real. It was a hook, a glimpse of what you wanted so desperately that you ignored every red flag waving in front of you. That's the illusion of change. Toxic partners don't change because you love them harder. They don't change because you suffer enough, or forgive enough, or prove your worth. They change only when they want to, and most of the time, they don't. Because the current dynamic works for them. They get the control, the attention, the emotional supply. Why would they give that up? You're the one paying the emotional price, not them. And yet, you keep hoping. You think, if I just do this differently. If I just stay calm. If I just give them space. You make yourself smaller trying to avoid conflict, and you call it compromise. But compromise only works when both sides are trying. You're not compromising, you're collapsing. You're turning yourself into someone easier to love for a person who's not capable of loving you in the first place. And that fear of being alone keeps whispering, at least you have someone. But here's the paradox, when you're in a toxic relationship, you are already alone. You lie next to someone who doesn't see you. You share a life with someone who doesn't hear you. You pour yourself out to someone who only takes. You think being single means emptiness, but there's nothing emptier than loving someone who treats you like you're replaceable. The truth is, the moment you decide to leave will hurt. You'll feel like you're tearing a part of yourself away, and in some sense, you are. Because toxic love fuses itself into your identity. It makes you forget who you were before. That's why leaving feels like dying, because a part of your identity dies with it. But that's exactly how rebirth works. You can't become who you were meant to be while clinging to what was killing you. I want you to imagine something. Imagine standing on a burning bridge. Behind you is the relationship, the memories, the hopes, the what-ifs. Ahead of you is a wide, open space called freedom. And in between is fear. Most people spend their lives standing right there, staring at the flames, too scared to take the next step. But here's what they don't realize, the longer you stay, the closer the fire gets. And one day, it's not just a bridge that burns, it's you. So when your mind says, what if I never find love again, remember this, love is not something you find. It's something you create, and it starts within you. Real love doesn't begin with someone else choosing you. It begins with you choosing yourself. It begins the moment you stop settling for pain disguised as passion. It begins when you stop mistaking chaos for chemistry. It begins when you decide that peace is not boring, it's sacred. You don't heal by finding another person. You heal by rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself. You start by asking, what did I lose in that relationship that I want to reclaim? Maybe it's your confidence. Maybe it's your voice. Maybe it's your joy. Then you start giving those things back to yourself, piece by piece. That's how healing works. It's not about forgetting them, it's about remembering you. So, let's flip the question. Instead of asking, what if I never find someone else, ask, what if I finally find myself? What if the loneliness I fear is actually the peace I've been craving? What if being alone isn't the punishment, it's the path to freedom? Because one day, when you've healed, when your nervous system no longer confuses love with survival, you'll meet someone again. But this time, it won't be to fill a void, it'll be to share your wholeness. And you'll know it's real because it won't feel like addiction, or anxiety, or pain. It'll feel calm. It'll feel safe. It'll feel like home, not the home you came from, but the one you built within yourself. And that's when you'll realize that loneliness was never the enemy. It was the teacher. It was showing you that peace isn't found in another person, it's found in choosing yourself, again and again, until it no longer feels like a choice. There comes a moment when you finally get tired of crying over the same apologies, tired of explaining what should already be obvious, tired of begging for the bare minimum. That moment, as painful as it is the beginning of your rebirth. It's when you stop asking, why won't they change, and start asking, why do I keep giving my peace away? It's the moment when the heartbreak turns into clarity. Because healing doesn't start when you leave the relationship, it starts when you choose yourself. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. It's the radical act of saying, I deserve to be whole. It means cutting the cord that's been wrapped around your heart for too long. It means breaking the addiction, even when your body screams for one more taste of chaos. And yes, it hurts. It's supposed to. Because you're not just walking away from a person, you're walking away from an identity you built around them. You're walking away from the version of you that settled for pain and called it love. The first step of this rebirth is the total break, no contact. Not let's stay friends. Not maybe we'll talk later. Not I just need closure. You already have closure. The pattern is your closure. The pain is your answer. Every message, every late night scroll through old photos, every just checking in text reopens the wound. And you can't heal from something you keep touching. The same way you wouldn't expect a cut to close if you kept picking at it, you can't expect emotional healing while you're still in communication with the person who caused the damage. No contact is not punishment, it's protection. Then comes the withdrawal. And make no mistake, it will come. The quiet will feel unbearable at first. You'll reach for your phone, you'll check your messages, you'll replay conversations. You'll feel the urge to go back, not because you missed them, but because you missed the intensity. The chaos. The illusion of being needed. That's your brain trying to trick you into returning to what's familiar. But this time, you know better. The discomfort you're feeling isn't proof that you made a mistake, it's proof that you're detoxing from a system that was designed to keep you hooked. So what do you do instead? You sit with it. You ride the wave. You replace obsession with intention. Fill your time with things that bring you back to life, movement, sunlight, laughter, community. The goal isn't distraction, it's reconnection. Reconnection with your body, your passions, your peace. Because when you've been living in survival mode, even silence can feel dangerous. You have to teach your nervous system that calm is safe again. Then, you start rebuilding your identity. Toxic relationships distort your self-image. They convince you that you're too much, too sensitive, too needy. That's not truth, that's projection. So now, your job is to unlearn those lies. Ask yourself, who was I before this relationship? What did I love? What did I dream about? What made me feel alive before I started walking on eggshells? And then, slowly, you begin to bring that person back. You rediscover your own rhythm. You reconnect with friends who remind you who you are. You start doing small things that make you proud. That's how self-esteem rebuilds, not overnight, but in every small act of choosing yourself again. And here's something no one tells you, healing isn't linear. Some days, you'll feel powerful and free. Other days, you'll wake up missing them, questioning everything. That's normal. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without losing yourself in the memory. It means feeling the pain without letting it define you. Every time you resist going back, every time you choose peace over chaos, you rewire your brain a little more. You're training it to recognize safety, not unpredictability, as love. You'll also need to forgive yourself, not for staying too long, but for not knowing what you know now. You did the best you could with the awareness you had. You stayed because your heart believed love could fix what only healing can. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And forgiveness is what closes the chapter completely. Because you can't build a new story while you're still bleeding from the old one. Then comes the most beautiful part of all, the moment you realize you don't need them anymore. One morning, you'll wake up and the ache will be quieter. You won't feel the urge to check their social media. You won't replay the what-ifs. You'll just breathe, and it'll feel peaceful. That peace will confuse you at first because you're not used to it. But that's your new normal. That's what real love for yourself feels like, steady, warm, gentle. Not fireworks. Not adrenaline. Just peace. And that's when you finally understand, freedom was never about getting revenge or proving them wrong. It was about remembering who you were before they tried to convince you otherwise. It was about realizing that you were never too much, you were just too powerful for someone who needed you small. It was about seeing that you don't need someone else to complete you, because you were never incomplete to begin with. So, this is your rebirth. Not the kind that happens in one dramatic moment, but the kind that unfolds quietly, one brave choice at a time. The day you stop explaining yourself. The day you block their number and mean it. The day you look in the mirror and say, I'm not broken, I'm healing. That's where it happens. That's where the story changes. And one day, when someone new enters your life, you won't mistake chaos for chemistry anymore. You'll recognize love not by how it excites you, but by how it calms you. You'll realize that being alone never meant being unloved, it meant being unmanipulated. And that's the most powerful kind of freedom there is. So, choose yourself. Choose peace over drama, truth over illusion, solitude over fake connection. Choose the version of you that doesn't settle for half love and hollow promises. Because the moment you do, everything changes. The fog lifts. The cycle ends. And you finally step into a life that doesn't require you to suffer just to feel alive. That's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your becoming. And it all starts with one simple, powerful decision, you. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. I know your time is valuable. If this message spoke to you, if it gave you even one moment of clarity or peace, I'd be grateful if you'd let me know. A simple like, a comment with your thoughts, or subscribing to the channel helps this community grow, and it helps more people who might need these words to find them. Share your reflections below, I do read them. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, take care of your peace.